Okay, I have had lots of requests for the Northern Lights tutorial, and I'm not very good at tutorials yet. I'm still working on it just because my techniques change so often, and I kind of go by the feel of things now instead of a certain technique. So I'll try my best, so please be patient with me. So I use oil colors. I really like the fast drying ones. You can find them online. But here I have Prussian blue. It's one of my favorites. And then a medium blue-green, like veridian green is a really good one. And then a light green. Any kind of light green is fine. And then white, of course. And if you are using the normal oils, I would recommend adding an alkali to it, a faster drying medium oil. If you're not familiar, there's a lot online and you can get a lot more information online. Okay, so I've added a little bit of that oil to loosen up this paint. I can't give you exact measurements just because it changes based on the color and who the manufacturer is. Each one will be different, each tube will be different. So make sure not to use too much of it. You don't want it really thin where you don't have any more pigment left. And you just need enough to make a thin layer. We're going to apply that light green to the base of where your aurora streak is going, because that's going to be our bottom color. So you want it to go along the bottom of your light ray. It's really important that this layer is thin. You don't want too much paint or you're going to have a huge mess when you add your white to it. Okay, now we're gonna grab some of that medium green and go in right above the light green you just added. And if you want your horizon to have more of a greenish hue, then you'll also put it underneath to give that kind of afterglow effect. So you have to keep in mind your whole composition, what kind of look you're going for. If you're going for that subtle green glow on the horizon, you want to put this medium green under and above this light streak. But if you want your ray to stand out even more, I would go with a blue underneath that light green. So I did add a little bit of that medium green underneath the streak, just a little bit, because I do like the afterglow it gives. I didn't fill out the entire horizon with green because in my mind I have a bluer horizon that I want. So we're going to grab this Prussian blue, and with a little bit of our oil medium, we're going to fill out the rest of the sky and the horizon with it. Okay, it's time to create our ray now. So we're going to use a fan brush. You can use a regular brush and draw a white line. It gives you a more solid base of your light. And if you notice in a lot of pictures, sometimes the aurora is more solid. If you like it to be more separated, where you have a lot of different streaks coming up, then I would use the fan brush. I've been preferring the fan brush lately just because it's new for me and more exciting. So I'm going to use the fan brush right now. But if you notice, I add a lot of white to it. When you get those white clumps, it adds those little white highlights to your ray that you see on the final product. So allow it to be messy and just tap where you want that light ray to go, starting at the base of your light green streak. Okay, so this is one of my favorite brushes from Princeton Brush. I use it all the time. It's their oval mop, and it comes in a lot of different sizes, and I have all of them because they're so useful. You can use them as a straight edge brush or a blending brush, and it's really soft, and it's just one of my favorite brushes, and I highly recommend going and getting one of these. Now we're going to create those light rays that go straight up. Be very light on your canvas and just go from the bottom and streak upwards in a row. Don't overblend or you'll lose this effect. And also in between each brush stroke, wipe off your brush. You want to get that excess blue off of it so that it doesn't drag through the white. After you've made your first pass, go back through with a dry, clean brush and gently blend it, especially towards the bottom. Be very light-handed with it so you don't overblend it and lose the effect altogether. And then I go back through and gently blend away those streaks that are under it and smooth it out. Just be very gentle when you're blending it because you really will lose that effect, and the more you blend it, the less bright it will be. Okay, for my composition, I want to add some clouds in my horizon. So I'm going to take just a little bit of white and start loosely in small circles, adding some white to the background. Don't add too much white because it's a night sky, so you barely see these clouds, and if you add too much white, it's just a little bit unrealistic. And you can always add more white in the end if you want. It's easier to start out with less. So keep blending it out. It's better if you have less paint. It'll be less messy and it blends so much better. If you notice, I'm still using the oval mop brush, just in different sizes. That's how much I love this brush, because I went from making the streaks to making these fluffy clouds in the background. And I really want my horizon to be brighter because I plan to add trees to this painting. And if my horizon stays dark like this, those trees won't show up. So I'm going to add a little bit of a brighter horizon. I'm also going to brighten up the base of this aurora light just because I want a brighter background behind these trees. So I'm about to start my trees. I'm using a Princeton brush mini fan brush. It's one of my favorites for trees, and it's the 20/0. And I'm using Paynes gray instead of black. I've found that if I use a darker color that has red or blue in it, and it almost looks black, it just has way more dimension than using just black. So I sped up this part just because the video is already so long, and I do have a separate tutorial on how I make my trees, so I just decided to go ahead and speed this part up. Okay, so I actually did this backwards. I was supposed to do the stars before the trees so that if some of them got splattered, it's just easier to cover up with the trees, but I'm doing them after, and it doesn't really matter because they are fixable. So for stars, what you need is your white paint and then some of your thinner or your oil. I like using a fan brush, but you can use other brushes that are really frayed and have a good bounce back. I like having my stars closer to the top and then less on the bottom. A lot of people say if there's an aurora, there's no stars out because it's so bright, but I personally really like the stars, and I like having lots of stars, so I like using my artistic license to add lots of stars, even though it's not as realistic. So if you're going for something more realistic, I would encourage having less stars. Now I got a couple stars that are a little bit smeared. It's really easy to fix. You want to pick up that paint instead of smearing it around, and then cover it back up with your darker Prussian blue. And then on the tree line down below, you see some of the stars fell on that. It's super easy to fix. You just take some of your Paynes gray and your fan brush and dab on them and they'll disappear. Now, unfortunately, my camera stopped recording for some reason before I could add the Paynes gray onto the trees and fix the rest of those stars. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. I didn't realize it was gone until after the recording. So I had already fixed it up, but they are really easy to fix. And that's it. That's how I do my northern lights. Of course, it changes all the time. You can add more lights to it if you want. I would encourage you to play with the techniques to find what works best for you. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial.